The world will be watching St. Louis. The best in the U.S. The best in the world. Only one will be king. The Sinquefield Cup. Information at stlouischessclub.org.
This year's Sinquefield Cup is the strongest chess tournament ever. We have the highest average rating in history, with 6 of the top 10 players in the world participating. And that includes world number 1, Magnus Carlsen, also the defending champion from last year's Sinquefield Cup. The very best in chess competing today at the St. Louis Chess Club for the 2014 Sinquefield Cup. And our complete coverage from first move to winning move starts right now.
Hi folks, John Cordisco back again. Sorry I'm a little bit late on the games from the second Sinquefield Cup 2014. The highest rated average tournament ever in the history of chess, and I'm proud to say it's right in America's heartland here in the center of the United States in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm a little behind because I played in the New York State Championship over the weekend. After the Sinquefield Cup, I'll show the games that I played in and tell you about what happened up there. It was pretty cool. Anyway, round 4 action between Fabiano Caruana, who's won 3 games in a row, against 11 Aronian as black from Armenia. Let's get to it. It's going to be a closed relope. We've all seen this a few times. Knight f6, castles, bishop d3. To me, that signifies it's the closed relope. b5, black castles, knight c3, pretty much standard stuff. d6, a3, a tucking away square for the bishop, in case the knight ever comes here, or here in the future, the bishop can come back to save the light squared bishop. That's the relope bishop, bearing right down on black's king. Knight to a5, he tucks the bishop away, bishop e6, forces the trade. Now, that's not so bad a pawn structure, even though this file is open on the king. There's a lot of control here by black in the center spaces, so if he ever decides to go here, he's got a really strong center. b4, chase the knight, knight c6, bishop d2 by Caruana. And of course, black continues with his plan to grab the center with d5, rook to e1, queen to d6. Now, there's no way black's going to take. That would really mess him up because he'll have these double pawns here. So he has to leave the tension there to keep his pawns. Because that way he can, if pawn takes, pawn will take, and he'll have these 2 nice center pawns. Knight to a2. Knight to d7. That was the computer that showed that. That's going to be the travel for the knight. It's going to go from d7, b6 to a4. Typical maneuver in this position. It's a lot of tempos, but queen e2, d4, and he is closing it up. Rook, knight b6, here goes the knight, knight c1, knight a4. Now, I haven't really checked it yet, but my Fritz computer's on off screen. It's a tiny advantage for white. These closed relope are very interesting positions. Let's see how this works out. Caruana goes knight to b3, rook to f7 for Aronian. He's going to double up on the f file now that he has it open on white's king. Rook to c1, rook to d8, knight to g5. threatening the rook. He's kind of coaxing the trade. So after bishop takes, the black gives up his dark squared bishop, so Aronian decides to move the rook. Queen h5. Pawn. Knight comes back to f3. Rook. Rook to f1. Rook comes up. Rook a to e1. Now this looks pretty scary for black, but it's not really. He's got plenty of protection. If he has to, eventually he can bring this bishop back in case he wants to sack here in the future. This rook's currently guarding that pawn, but things can change. And he does do that. Bishop f8. h3. g6. Hitting the queen. Queen has to back off. Queen e7. Getting some protection on the king. Queen comes over. Get right on the file with the king. If bishop had taken, bishop takes, queen takes, rook takes, pawn takes, rook to h7, queen takes, rook to g7, and black loses the queen. Excuse me, white loses the queen. After queen to g3, computer has white up about a pawn and a quarter or so. Got a pretty good attack. This knight now seems a little out of place. He's going to have to take 1, 2, 3 moves to get back in the game. This knight might come over later and help, but it's going to be tough. Now, in all fairness, this knight here is in somewhat of a good spot. If this knight ever moves, he can jump into here. So that's probably why it gives white a little bit of an advantage. Bishop, knight to a5. Worth considering the computer had knight takes, and after knight takes, queen takes, rook takes f2. With a small advantage for white. As you can see, the bishop's skewering the queen. After knight to a5, knight takes, knight moves, knight takes, threatening the queen. Rook takes, of course. Queen just retakes. Queen to d8, e5. Now, white sacrificed 2 pawns for a piece. And he's got a pretty good attack going here. There's always this in the air, this bishop takes, and the knight discovery with check in the future that you gotta, sometimes just the threat is almost as strong as the execution of a move, just to make your opponent think and worry. Rook to f5. Pawn comes up. It's hard to put the squeeze on. Try to trap that rook. c5. Knight h4 to hit the rook. Rook h5. Knight f3. And this is where I think Aronian miscues. Computer calls for rook to f8 or queen to e8. Rook to f8 is a little bit better. He goes king to h7. And that's what I meant, sometimes the execution is worse than the move itself. I think he just wanted that pin off. Now it's about a 2 1/4 pawn advantage for white. And he's going to start coming in here. Threatens the pawn and the rook. Rook has to move to save the pawn and himself. Knight. King goes to h8. Knight takes. Rook takes. About 2.5 point advantage now for white. Looks like Aronian's defense is crumbling. Now I want you to pay attention to this too. We got 2 full pieces over here doing nothing. Absolutely nothing. So in essence, he's over a piece down, 2 pieces down. It's a rook for 2 pawns against 2 knights, but the 2 knights are off the board. So you might as well say you're up a rook. Queen to g6, queen to e7, trying to desperately try to get a defense going here. g4, rook has to come back. f5, here come the pawns, just storming. Queen to e8. I think at this point black is doomed, about 3 points behind. Queen takes, rook takes, f6. He's just cramming these pawns right down his throat. Bishop has to back up. f7, which is also the computer's choice. Second choice was rook to e4, but the best move by far was f7. Rook has to move. Rook f6. Going after this pawn with bishop and rook. And this rook protecting the pawn. I mean, you gotta be kidding, right? Knight to b6. Bishop takes. Knight d7, protecting the bishop. Now the other rook comes over. C takes. A takes. Bishop takes. Rook takes. King to g7. And rook to h5. And that's where black, Levin Aronian, for right now, number 2 in the world, resigns, to give you an idea what would have happened after the knight. Queen, knight takes, rook to g5 check, king, rook to g8, and that's it. Black is doomed. Anyway, folks, that's one of the games from round 4. Sorry I was a few days late. I was out of town playing at the New York State Championship in Albany, New York. And I want you all to remember, if you think chess is just a game, you're not playing it right. And I also want to thank my dozen or so new subscribers. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.